Hello and welcome to FatbossTV.
Hello.
And today we're having a look at the Shadowmoon Burial Grounds on the Warlords of Draenor Alpha.
That's right, this is the second 5-man instance Blizzard have allowed us to showcase.
Yep.
And it's looking pretty good. It's pretty grim.
Yeah, it's a bit dark and depressing, let's be real.
We are in a crypt.
Yeah.
But the whole idea behind this place is that you've come in here to kill Nobble, basically.
Yeah, through the whole of Shadowmoon Valley, Nobble's just being a bastard, and you're like, oh, for God's sake, and so you have to go deal with him in some horrible crypt.
Yeah. The aesthetics of this place is brilliant. I mean, I like the rune effects as well on the ground, the environmental effects where you actually take damage, which actually comes in on the first boss.
Yeah, as well, and it's really good, and like the whole thing, they're all shadowy, all like the apparitions, and it's just, it feels like you're underground, and it's hopeless, and it's just horrible, and that's what I really like. They've really done well, I think.
It's not Happy Panda Land.
It is not Happy Panda Land. It's like the opposite of Happy Panda Land, but the whole place is really, really cool. But talking about the layout of the instance itself, it's kind of separated into like 3 different areas. The first area, you've got 2 bosses in it. You've got a boss at the beginning with, it's like on a central platform above some water, like on a circular platform, and you kill that and you move on, and there's like a boss in a cave area. Then you'll move on to the second area, and it's once again a boss on a platform above water. However, the water actually is quite a key mechanic in the fight as well, which we'll show you when we get to it, and it's really, really cool. And of course, the third area is just Nobble's room. Once again, it looks really, really cool as well once you're in there. So it's quite a simple layout. It is linear, which is kind of a shame, but it's still really quite cool, I think, overall.
The instance is located in Shadowmoon Valley. Right now, on the alpha, the dungeon is listed as level 90 to 100.
Yeah. Which
is a little bit odd in that the mobs in it are scaled to level 100, and we're on pre-made level 100 characters to actually do the instance. And it is on normal mode, it's not on heroic. There will be a heroic version for this at level 100. But at level 100, if there'll be a normal mode as well, I doubt. This instance is probably for a 90 to 93, just like the slag mines.
Yeah, and then there'll be a level 100 heroic version. But to be honest, I think we're just seeing a scaled up normal version rather than the heroic version of the thing. But we don't exactly know, so we'll have to see.
So going towards the first boss, you're pretty much only, like, the only noticeable things is these guys, the void spawns. They don't really do any mechanics apart from one, which is a Void Pulse. This does a large amount of AoE damage to your raid, so you need to make sure that you interrupt it. If you don't interrupt it, you could quite easily wipe on these guys.
Yeah.
But the problem isn't so much them on their own, it's when they're in a group.
Yeah, because like you have a bunch of them all together, and of course there's other mechanics to deal with, like those giant arcane orb things. And it's really, really cool. So it is quite important that you do try and assign interrupts and stuns and stuff like that. But once you clear out this whole place, you move on to the first boss.
So as you can see, there was a bit of an environmental damage there from the runes. You need to make sure that you do not stand in those runes. But the main mechanic on this boss are these daggers. These daggers will spawn on 3 players, and it's always on top of the player, and when they land, it will pretty much, well, it won't insta-kill you, it will do a huge amount of damage, so it's very, very important that you move out of them. And when they do land, they do pulsing AoE damage around them, so it's important that you don't stand near them.
Another thing that she does is that she drags one of her spirits from the sky and tries to consume it. Now, you can slow these down and all that kind of stuff, but you can't stun them or anything else. You can't grip them either. And basically, if she absorbs it, she heals herself and gets a 20% damage increase.
Which stacks.
Yeah, which stacks. And the thing is, it's like, you have to switch really quick. I don't think it's scaled properly.
We didn't have the damage to kill them.
Yeah.
But this is one of her core abilities, which is amazing. As you can see, there's sort of like an eclipse going on, like literally a shadow of a planet going over the entire encounter room.
Yeah.
As that flies over, once it's finished flying over, everyone takes a huge amount of damage.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, almost insta-kill. So you need to make sure that you stand on, like, these white runes that appear in the central circle when this does happen. And that will avoid you from being pretty much insta-kill.
Yeah, it gives you an 80% damage reduction for about 6 seconds, so you stop taking a ridiculous amount of damage. So what we kind of did for the tactic was sod the little apparition things and just nuke the boss.
We simply didn't have enough damage to kill those ads. I think they're slightly overtuned, but I mean, we are in PvP gear. So
also, she does do this AoE, so it does, like, there is a bit of a pseudo-enrage that if she gets too many stacks, that AoE will start one-shotting you, and of course the room's filling up with daggers, and then she does more dark eclipses, and there is a lot going on.
Yeah.
I did go to the white things around the outside of the room. I think they just damage you. It's a little bit unclear, but definitely the runes around the circle, the center, you know, like showing the cycle of the moon, that definitely gives you the damage reduction. But yeah, I really do like this fight. There is so much going on, and it's a normal mode boss. Like, once again, these normal mode bosses, this is like the bridge boss 5.0. It's like they've gone all out on this one. And I think it's really, really awesome overall. I think we did wipe once, but that's because we didn't know any of the mechanics. Once we kind of knew what was going on, we could take it down. But definitely a really, really cool encounter.
So after you have killed this guy, you take your way up the steps and you go through a network of sort of caves. It's like a cave system which leads you up towards the second boss. This trash doesn't really do much. It's like your standard caster trash, just interrupt them. And it brings you to the second boss. So one of the boss's main mechanics is that he spawns these ads.
Yeah, if you look around the outside of the room, there's these little, like, shallow graves around the outside, kind of like Zul'Farrak. And if you run over them, they will spawn an ad and the grave will despawn. But also, he will spawn things out of them as well. So I'm not sure right at the beginning if you want to, like, round them all up or anything like that.
Probably not.
I don't really know how it works. He has got a frontal cone, like, AoE shadow thing, which just goes on the tank. So I guess you could sidestep it. But one thing he does do is he teleports and then starts dragging you in. And it does do not that much damage, but I think it's definitely a cool mechanic. You can once you get a certain, like, way away from him, though, it will make it so you just don't get, like, dragged in anymore. So there is, like, a range.
So you can prevent the grip. And this is one of his, like, cooler abilities, is that he puts you into a planar shift.
Yeah, and basically you have to fight your own soul within it, which is running around, and it can run out of bounds because it's a bastard. But once you actually kill it, you've got to run over to it and click on it before the timer's out. And during this whole time, you're taking ticking AoE damage as well. And you haven't got your healer in there or anything like that with you. So you've got to do it as quickly as possible.
You've got to kill it before it kills you. And when you do come out, you do get a 20% damage increase buff for about 20 seconds or so, which is a nice touch. Now, he also does this Void Devastation, which will spawn all those things, pretty nasty. But essentially the fight is avoid the Void Blast, avoid the Dragon, avoid getting, like, killed by ads that are spawning out of all the little circles on the ground and from the graves. And avoid the Void Devastation, all the Void Zones on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's definitely a cool encounter. I really like how everything's going on. I don't think the room's very cool, if I'm honest.
Yeah, but, I mean, I don't think the fight's overwhelmingly amazing, but it's not terrible by any means.
For some reason, all the ads that you killed throughout the fight just remain there.
Yeah.
Now, this is a very cool looking room.
Yeah, so as you make your way out of the second boss room, you enter the second area of the instance where the third boss is housed. The trash here is just spiders and bats.
Yeah, the spiders do like a horrible dot on the tank.
Yeah, that can be dispelled though, so that's not too bad.
It's pretty vicious, but it's more than capable of dealing with it. But like the whole area is just like some giant cavern underground, and like walking up to this boss is just so. Oh, look at this! And you got these ads. They're not really supposed to be fiery. This is like
they are placeholder models, so sadly we can't actually see what they're supposed to be. But these ads themselves don't really seem to do anything apart from a body slam.
Yeah.
And then at 30% health, they stop attacking. You can no longer attack them, and then they despawn.
Okay. Yeah,
Alpha be alpha.
It's very much alpha-y. Yeah, it's a bit broken. Of course, you can see all around the outside as well. There's a lot of water, and when you go in this water, you become pacified and can't actually do shit. It doesn't do any ticking damage or anything like that, but it just means you're going to be pacified. And you see something like that frontal shockwave, that'll knock you in the water, and it's a pain in the ass to get out. You have to use like the two geysers around the sides of the room to get knocked back up.
Which you also need to use in the boss fight itself.
So here's the boss, Bone Moore, bless him.
Again, using a temp model.
Yeah.
So this guy's pretty awesome, actually.
He
feels a little bit buggy.
Yeah, he's not finished yet, if you ask me.
His mechanics are in place, but it does feel slightly buggy. So he'll do this breath, which is supposed to do ticking AoE damage on the raid. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And he'll also spawn these piles of skeleton arms that comes out the ground, which you're supposed to stand on in a minute. And he'll also do that massive shockwave.
Which will knock you into the water.
If you get hit by the shockwave, you land in the water.
But one of his main abilities that he's just about to do is inhale. Now, this is really, really cool. What he'll do, he'll kind of like pull you towards him. But if you stand in like the skeletal arms on the floor, then you won't be dragged in. So what you got to do, you got to make sure that when you get pulled in, you get pulled into the right place and you stay in those little skeletal circles.
However, while you are standing inside those skeletal circles, you do take extra damage.
Yeah.
However, if you do get inhaled, as you'll see in a moment, it's more or less a kill mechanic. It deals huge amounts of damage.
Then this suddenly happens. He spawns two ads either side. I constantly get knocked off at this point. And you've got to try and kill those ads because they're doing giant crushes as well.
Yeah, at 30% these ads spawn and they start spraying AoE damage on the raid.
Yeah.
And they spray more AoE damage down for every player that isn't in melee range. You need to make sure that you have at least one player in their melee range. Otherwise, just everyone gets destroyed, as you can sort of see what's happening
But as you can see now, he's also doing his inhale while you're fighting the ads at the side that are trying to knock you up, and then he can eat you. And what he'll do like a shit ton of damage and then actually shit you out into the water.
Yeah.
So,
or you just die what happened to me.
You died like midway, yeah. And of course, like it's horrible. But the encounter itself, I think, is pretty cool. But it's it seems a bit vicious. It's like you haven't got any space to go, and like it's a bit overwhelming, really.
It just feels like the timings are slightly off with some of the abilities.
Yeah.
And he sometimes interrupts one ability with another ability.
Yeah.
Which happens with the first boss and the second boss as well. The timings feel a little bit wrong on some of these bosses, but generally you can see from the concept and the idea that they've got that it's going to be a particularly good fight, I think.
Yeah, it's got a hell of a lot of potential. It just needs to be like kind of figured out a little bit more, just make sure the actual mechanics work a little bit better in harmony, so to speak. But yeah, I really do like that fight. I think it's got a really nice like room to it. So here's probably the most horrible trash in the whole place.
So after taking the steps up towards the final boss, you have 2 void spawns at the same time.
And you can't CC them at all.
No.
So it's pretty vicious. We managed to get through it, but it's pretty vicious. Now here's the last room. You're about to go in it. And it's awesome. And it's like, oh, look, it's Nazul doing a giant shadowy thing. You get a cutscene, and then you fall down into the edge of reality.
But the cutscene didn't work.
Yeah, it's a bit broken. But regardless, look at this room.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's like all these steps around the outside, and
so this room and everything looks brilliant. However,
the boss isn't particularly brilliant.
Nazul, this was mentioned on the feedback posts on the WoW forums that Nazul isn't finished. They're not happy with him. Right now, he only has 3 abilities. One of the abilities being these beams that come from the sky. These always spawn on the tank. And how they work is that the closer you stand to them, the more AoE damage you take from them. But
so
they do
run towards it, of course.
Yeah, they do pulsing AoE damage across the entire room, so you need to make sure that you don't stand near them. So the tank can do that by running away when they are about to spawn, and then moving back towards the group.
Yeah. Which is pretty cool, and of course he's doing these like frontal shockwaves as well, so you got to make sure that you face it like mainly towards away from the raid sort of thing.
Yeah, the tank can carry this fight, but the most interesting mechanic that happens in this fight is that a wall of skeletons spawn.
Yeah, and basically you can kill one of the skeletons, and I imagine what it's supposed to do is like
It'll
open
break
a path
the chain, yeah.
that you're supposed to be able to go
because
through.
behind them is a load of void shit.
Yeah.
And if you stand in the void shit, it kills you very, very quickly.
Yeah.
However, on the alpha,
you can kind of just hug the wall and they'll despawn. The thing is, everyone was screaming at this point. Loz was like, I'm going to run through it, and he dies. But everyone else was fine because we just hugged the wall. So, of course, that isn't really intentional. I imagine it is supposed to cover the whole area. But, yeah, I think overall, it's got, like, some nice ideas. The room is really good, but it's definitely not finished. Considering, compare this to the first boss, nowhere near in the same realm.
There's certainly a lot more that they plan to add to this fight. What that is, not too sure just yet, but overall I'd say even though some of the boss fights, well, the majority of the boss fights aren't complete and they do need some tuning and some fixing with the timing of their spells, it's still a really, really good instance.
Yeah,
and it shows some real promise, again, for the quality of the 5-mans coming out in Warlords of Draenor. But thank you very much, guys, for watching, and of course we'll be covering all the other 5-mans that they do come out. There's still 6 more to cover.
Jeez. I'm really excited. It's going to be so good. If these are any sort of idea of what's coming out, then we have a lot to look forward to, so it should be awesome. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching.